Pokemon Legends ZA is finally here, and we now know that Feraligatr Mega Evolves into Mega Feraligatr, changing it from a pure water type to a water dragon. They also made Mega Feraligatr have 160 base attack, all the way from that 105 from regular Gator. But how does this compare to Life Orb Sheer Force regular Feraligatr? And will Mega Feraligatr be able to cut it in competitive play? Let's talk about it. Mega Feraligatr is finally here in Pokemon Legends ZA, and love it or hate it, it's Water Dragon, and I'm okay with it, right? Like, obviously the design, at first I was like, that's it. But then when it attacks, I think it looks really cool. So, let's talk a little bit about Feraligatr and what are its strengths and what does Mega Feraligatr bring to the table. So, the most typical set, or all Feraligatr sets really, should run Sheer Force plus Life Orb. Why? The interaction is amazing. When you go for moves that are boosted by Sheer Force, you don't take any Life Orb recoil. Meaning Liquidation is incredibly strong with the trade-off of you can't get the defense drop, but it also runs Crunch and Ice Punch, all moves that have access to be boosted, or that are boosted by Sheer Force Life Orb. So you're never taking Life Orb damage for any of these attacks, which is amazing. And then you're typically running your Dragon Dance, or your Swords Dance. Those are basically what Gator wants to run. If you run Swords Dance, sometimes you can run Scale Shot with Life Orb, which is kind of applicable to what we're going to be talking about today with Mega Feraligatr. But this is the big thing about Gator, right? It is a Dragon Dance or Swords Dance sweeper. Nothing really else. Gator's not really trying to do anything else. Maybe Loaded Dice, Swords Dance as well, but that still follows under the Swords Dance sweeper. It also has some times in this past where it did run special attacks with like Ice Beam and Focus Blast. When it was on low tiers, it was trying to use Focus Blast for Pharaoh Seed, not Pharaoh Thorn, Pharaoh Seed, and to two-shot it. But besides that, you're not really doing too much else with Gator anyway. But then you look at Mega Gator. Now, Mega Gator, pretty big attack increase if we're really talking about it, right? Regular Feraligatr at 105. They gave it a 55 increase. It's 160 attack. It has more defense at 125. It also has 10 more special attack, and then it has 10 more special defense. I'm going to be completely honest. I would have loved to see a little bit more speed on Feraligatr, just to be faster than those base 80s. But either way, I like the attack increase. However, a few things I want to discuss when it comes to Gator, right? Being part dragon is cool because you do have a lot of dragon moves in your arsenal, right? You have Outrage, which is not usually ran too much, but Dragon Tail, Dragon Claw, excuse me, and honestly Dragon Tail as well, right? So you have a lot of dragon moves in your arsenal, and at least on the physical side. And these are viable in a sense as stab, but Outrage locks you into an attack. Scale Shot is kind of going to be weak on a no loaded dice set, because you never know when you'll get 2 hits versus 4 or 5. And I'm gonna tell you something. When you're not running loaded dice, this move only hits twice. I swear, this move only hits twice. And you're not really gonna be wanting Dragon Tail because that'll be on a bulkier set. Then this, while it can make use of like maybe a physically defensive set in draft, the metagame where you're counter teaming each other. Besides that, that's basically it. So I would kind of leave it at these two as the moves being taken. So in terms of abilities, however, when it comes to Sheer Force, Life Orb, Sheer Force, Adamant regular Gator, or Jolly regular Gator, basically hits harder, right? So this is a Life Orb Sheer Force boosted liquidation into just Golden Go, and it does 67 to 79. So if I get rid of Sheer Force on Mega Feraligatr, it only does 53 to 63, right? So if it keeps Sheer Force, it is going to be stronger than the Life Orb one, just marginally, not really too much. As you can see, because the modifiers are crazy, like it's 69 minimum versus 67 minimum into 82 versus 79. So it's not really too much of an increase, which is a little bit sad. So I really don't want it to keep Sheer Force because it's not like Gator had trouble picking up those KOs anyway, and it's not like Life Orb was being detrimental because all your moves were boosted by Sheer Force, so you were never taking recall. So I really don't want it to have Sheer Force. And then let's talk about, based on its, the way it looks, people were talking about it potentially having the Strong Jaw ability. Now, Strong Jaw, it's a good ability. However, they would have to make a water type bite. I know Fishious Run exists, okay? I know Fishious Run exists. Stop this, okay? You cannot make Dracovish with Dragon Dance or Swords Dance. You cannot do that. Dracovish is balanced. It's not. But by the fact that it's not balanced at all. But it's weak. This is 90 with 75 speed. This is way stronger. They're not going to give it Fishious Run. Stop this. Unhand me right now. They might. Who knows? It's Game Freak, Pokemon. They might do whatever they want. But I don't want that because, yeah, Strong Jaw is really cool for potentially that. But in my opinion, they'd have to make, like I said, a a dragon type bite move and a water type bite move applicable for Feraligatr. And I guess, you know, the water type move would be also good for Mega Sharpedo as well. I'd be like happy with that. But I don't want that. I don't think that'd be, it's still weaker than, because if they don't end up doing that, right? If they give it Strong Jaw, so you'll boost your crunch and stuff, which is really cool. And Ice Fang and stuff like that. But like, in Psychic Fangs, but your regular stabs are still way weaker than Life of Sheer Force regular Feraligatr. You got to remember, like, a Mega is a cost, right? If I'm Mega Evolving this Pokemon, I can't Mega Evolve any other mons. And there's some broken Mega Pokemon out there, right? So this is what I want, specifically for Feraligatr. And I feel like it makes sense, especially with how it looks. What I want is Dragon's Maul. I want Regidrago's ability. Look at Regidrago. Compare it. It basically got Feraligatr's head in his hands, all right? It literally has a Dragon's Maul, man. It literally has a Dragon's Maul. So I want Dragon Maul for Feraligatr. The reason I want Dragon's Maul for Feraligatr is because while it doesn't boost its water moves, and yes, Liquidation is still weaker from Gator, but still 160 base attack, right? It's still weaker from Gator at +2 then it would be into something like Golden Go. So again, let me get rid of this ability. Let me put this. Liquidation still 2 killing a Golden Rule, right? So at +2, you're still knocking out something like Golden Go anyway. But the reason I want this is because it would make its bad moves like Dragon's Claw. Dragon's Claw is typically, while it's 80 base power physical, it's kind of seen as like a weaker option when it comes to Dragon types, because you either want the Outrage to pick up the KO back in the day without Fairy types, or you want Draco Meteor on the special side, or you want Scale Shot to boost your speed as well. And I like this with Scale Shot because this is a physically defensive Zapdos. A +2 Dragon Claw does 95 to 112%. Beautiful, beautiful damage. Whereas Scale Shot on 3 hits does 90 to 106. I like this because it makes Gator an immediate threat, which I think is something that, you know, a starter should be, right? Because it kind of feels like the 3 starters from Pokemon Legends EA, they were like cheated. Whereas like the Kalos starters, which admittedly should have had Megas from the beginning, right? They should have been Megas in the generation they came out. Why would you release Megas there and not give it to the Kalos starters? But I'm happy they have it now because they're most likely more broken than they would have been back then. But I feel like Dragon's Maul gives it really, really cool opportunities to actually get off a lot of damage. And you're like, well, yeah, but you're Dragon's Maul mon with actual coverage, unlike Regidrago. But Regidrago did get coverage in this generation, right? Got Earthquake, got things like that. I like it because you can still play, it doesn't boost the water moves, so you can still go hard into a Fairy type on Scale Shot or Dragon Claw if you're scared about that. But in the flip side, Feraligatr can still actually get off real damage as well with its Liquidation, just not like disgustingly broken damage, right? It's 160 base attack, but it's not like they gave it Wave Crash, right? Palafin with Wave Crash or Jet Punch, disgusting. But Palafin can also run Life Orb, Choice Band, Punching Glove, whatever it wants, whereas Feraligatr can't. So there's a big difference when it comes to those two. And I feel like Dragon's Maul just makes it like a super, super, super viable Pokemon. Of course, Strong Jaw could be fine if they end up giving it a water biting move. Again, I really don't want it to be Fish's Wren, but if it's, because the main reason I don't want to be the Fish's Wren, like for VGC players, congrats, you got a really cool Pokemon that can abuse Fish's Wren under Tailwind, and I guess it's slow enough to maybe work in the Trick Room if you try hard enough. But for us draft or even OU players, singles players, not 3v3 but 6v6, like this would just be banned immediately, right? It's like I said, it's literally Dracovish with Swords Dance or Dragon Dance, and like it's strong with its other moves, right? The downside of when Dracovish was in the OU tier, and again, for those who don't know how Dracovish works, or those who don't know what Fish's Wren is, basically when it goes before the opponent is doubled in power. So Fish's Wren ends up being an insanely strong move. It ends up being an insanely strong move when going before the opponent. And this Pokemon with a base 90 attack was actually a giant threat with both Choice Band and Choice Scarf. It was slow too, so like you could still outspeed it with things like Dragapult and stuff like that, but it was still a very big threat. And because this Pokemon was so good at spamming water moves, and you didn't know if it was Band or Scarf, and it was on Rain. Don't even get me started on Rain calcs, like smoking Toxapexes and things like that, which smoked on Doza too. People ended up running Seismitoad. Seismitoad actually had usage. It was on like 56% of teams, or something crazy like that. It was like half the teams for sure. So what you would do with Dracovish when your opponent had a Seismitoad is you go for things like Dragon Claw, Crunch for strong. You would go for Strong Jaw crunches just to do like nothing to it because it's Fizz-Dav. You'd go for these little attacks to just wear it down piece by piece. And then eventually, if you ended up KOing Seismitoad because you played smart, or you played better than your opponent, you can then Vicious Rend, get kills with this Pokemon every single time. Psychic Fangs, things like that too. But this Mega Gator does not have to do that because it has 160 base attack. So even if, and I don't have to be choice to do damage with this. So even if you're switching your Seismitoad, if you come in and I go for Scale Shot, I'm smoking you. You saw the calc on defensive Zapdos, right? That mon is no slouch. So I really like the Dragon Small approach because it's good, but fairy types are at their, well, fairy types are always at their peak, but like they're just good, right? They're just naturally good, right? So you have like Clef, but Enamorus, Val is the big one, Hat as well. Like all mons, like obviously there's always, and Ogerpon's really good too. So obviously there's always like the risk of going for Vicious Rend versus Scale Shot versus Dragon Claw, but I feel like Dragon's Maul just makes it it's just good enough to be very solid. Right? It's good enough to be very, very solid, and it makes it have something over Gator. Whereas if it just kept Sheer Force, it's weaker than Life Orb Gator. Or just barely, right? It's just barely stronger. And then since I consider that weaker because it's a Mega Slot, and it has to actually take a move. So obviously let me know your thoughts. I'm excited for Mega Gator though. I'm having fun using it in Legends EA. And yeah, if you did enjoy it, make sure you leave a like, subscribe to the channel. I'll be talking about the other starters next and a bunch of other Pokemon coming up. So thank you again for watching. I'll see y'all in the next one. Peace.